The 90s were absolute wild time for Star Wars. Not only did we get the prequels, but we also got the re-releases or the digitally remastered versions of the original trilogy, and the films were about 20 years old at this point, or 10 or 20 years old. And this just gave way to so many new fans of Star Wars, myself included. We also got some of the best Star Wars games ever to exist, and today I'm going to go through every single Nintendo 64 Star Wars game, of course starting off in order with Shadows of the Empire. Now, what can I really say about Shadows of the Empire? It is one of them games you just gotta play it. But Shadows of the Empire wasn't just a game, it was also like a multimedia sort of attempt to re-energize Star Wars fans and just interest in Star Wars in general. There was a comic line and a toy line as well, which you probably saw the advert for in the beginning of this video. And for a time it seemed that like Nintendo and Star Wars went hand in hand. I explicitly remember a picture of the Nintendo 64 and its controller made out to look like an X-Wing and Millennium Falcon. Haven't been able to find that picture since, but I definitely remember it, so it's gotta be true. But anyway, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire on the Nintendo 64, released in 1997. This was the first Star Wars game released on the platform, and is a hybrid of sort of like 3D shooter game. I don't know. It's a third-person shooter game, but you also got like bike levels, you've got like gun rail levels, you got loads of stuff. It's a bit of everything. An adventure game, if you want to call it that. And in this game you take on the role of definitely not Han Solo Dash Rendar, another Corellian smuggler who has his, definitely not the Millennium Falcon, his own ship. And in this game you seemingly just sort of, I think this was like the first time I'd ever seen like a game where the story takes place just next to sort of the actual film as well. By that I mean sort of like just off to the side of the camera. If you had lingered a bit too long, you would have seen Dash Rendar. It's all canon. Now, going back to this game and playing it, it still plays quite fun. The controls are really weird, mainly because of the Nintendo 64 controller, which I do love, but also just because it was in that era of shooters where everything was just a bit off. I don't really know what to say about it. No one had really defined the controls of it, and you can switch around the camera view and it's not helpful. It doesn't help at all. Everything seems a little bit slidey, but I couldn't work out if that was just because of the actual game or because I was on an ice planet, which I think is a bit of a weird thing to do at the start of the game. There's your fair share of platforming in this game as well. I don't know what sort of like workout Dash Rendar has in the Star Wars universe, but he has got some mighty shoulders and biceps the size of his head, so you know he's probably doing quite well, whatever he's doing. His protein content is probably a lot of blue milk. You'll see in a second he's roughly only just like a little bit smaller than a Wampa, so you know he's a unit. But yeah, without any spoilers, the story of this takes you through sort of like a between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi sort of period of Star Wars. There's this guy called Prince Zizor or Zizor or Zaza or whatever you want to call him. It's never actually spoken out loud, I don't think, so it's just however you want to read it. He's like a crime lord who's also helping the Empire, who's got his own interests in like Luke and Leia. It's all very creepy. To be honest, if it wasn't for like, if the films weren't already made, you could probably make an argument that Dash Rendar was going to be sort of the takeover of Han Solo when they didn't know if Han Solo was going to come back for Return of the Jedi. But considering this game came out in the 90s, I don't know. It just seems like that. It just seems like you could have been playing as Han Solo, but he was busy elsewhere, so you're playing as Han Solo's mate. But overall, I really like this game. I had a lot of fun with this game as a kid. Going back to it now, it's hard and there's definitely some nostalgic glasses to it, but it is still a decent game, a very fun game. You just got to take your time with it. I will say though, the speeder bike sections, some of the worst things ever. Some of it is just annoying. Either like every time you play one of the speeder bike sections, I haven't got any capture footage of it, but every time you play one of the speeder bike sections, you either do amazing, just go straight through the game, or it's the worst experience of your life. So if we just ignore the footage I forgot to clip out, we'll move on to our next game, the second game to release on Nintendo 64, Star Wars Rogue Squadron. There's my copy. I think Star Wars Rogue Squadron is one of my favourite Nintendo 64 games ever. And I'm not going to talk that much about it. If you want to see a almost complete playthrough, because my game corrupted, of this game, then you can check that out on my channel. There are previous videos, a whole series of every single Rogue Squadron game. I went through every single one, and you can hear my full thoughts of this game there. But long and short, I'm just going to talk about nostalgia in this game. I'm not going to tell you the story of it, other than you play as Rogue Squadron, Luke's fighter squadron in the Star Wars universe. You play sometimes as Luke, sometimes as Wedge. Doesn't actually make a difference because you're flying ships about. It's really fun. You get every single Star Wars ship from the Rebels in this game. You can even unlock a TIE fighter, you can unlock the Millennium Falcon, and you could unlock the Naboo fighter. And this game came out in 1998, so that was a whole year before Phantom Menace came out. So as you can imagine, seeing the Naboo fighter in this game, wild. And there is a reason why it was in the game. I'll explain that in a little bit. Again, this game takes place between Empire Strikes Back and the original film A New Hope. So there's a lot of grey area as to what is going on, what you're doing, and what the canon is. But either or is pretty good, pretty fun. I'd say it's one of them harmless Star Wars stories that doesn't massively affect the actual story, like actual main story. So if you really wanted to, you probably could just consider this canon, unless Disney have decided to ruin this one as well. There is supposed to be a Rogue Squadron film coming out as well, if I remember correctly, but like nothing's really happened about that. I always thought Rogue One was going to be the Rogue Squadron game, but they just didn't. Perfect opportunity there, but you know, okay. But yes, I absolutely adore this game so much. I think it's one of the best Star Wars games ever made, if not the best Star Wars game ever made. I think the variety that you get in this game from every sort of ship you can get. I also believe that if there's a Star Wars fan that loves the A-Wing, this is probably the game that made them love the A-Wing, or one of the games in the series. And some of the best Rebel ships are in this game as well. You get some awesome Rebel ships. For example, you get the V-Wing, you get the B-Wing, you get the TIE Fighter. Not a Rebel ship, but it was really good in this game. Y-Wings are pretty cool in this. They're heavy, they're chunky, they just blow stuff up. They have such firepower behind them. You get to this little bit as well where, like, if you're in the bombing mode, you click like one of the C buttons and then you get like this little scope view. It's so fun, it's so cool. The environments are pretty well varied in this game as well, so you can go around, you can sort of see the different parts of the Star Wars universe, and it's all very, very pretty. I like this game a lot. I don't know if I've mentioned that. And like I said before, if you want to see a full playthrough of this video, you can just check out my channel, because I've done every single game. And the best way to keep up to date with my channel and the stuff that I do in it is to subscribe to the channel. That really is the best way to sort of like keep up to date with everything I'm doing. And at this point in the video, I like to normally ask a question. So if you have a favourite Star Wars video game, it doesn't have to be on Nintendo 64, leave a comment below, let me know what your favourite Star Wars game is, and yeah, I will always talk to it, because my channel's not big enough to actually ignore comments at the moment, so I will engage in most comments with everyone. So we're about halfway through these videos at the moment, because there was only 4 games that came out on the Nintendo, and we're going to move on to the very next one that came out. Jumping forward 2 more years, we are obviously going to be talking about the first game to be a movie tie-in to the Star Wars series game. And what a strange movie tie-in that is. I am talking about Star Wars Racer. There's my copy again. There it is. Look. So full disclosure, I am playing this on Steam just because I had some issues with the capture footage. But we're going to ignore that and pretend that this is exactly what it looks like, and the frame rate is exactly like this. I'm just really good at sort of optimizing my retro tink. That's why it looks so incredible. That's what we're gonna tell people. But yeah, Star Wars Racer, it's basically a kart racer, but not really, because there's not any power-ups, and it's just an arcade racer using pod racing, and it's so fun. It's a lot like, I'd say if I was to compare it to any other game, it's like F-Zero more than it is Mario Kart, where it's just high speed, you're flinging yourself about, you can blow up your pod racer. Anakin's definitely the best, but if you can unlock Sebulba, please unlock Sebulba, because his engine sounds amazing. This game has so many cool sound effects in it. I absolutely love it, and there's so many nice locations. All the maps are nice and varied, and they do actually take some degree of skill to get around. You can't just go forward all the time. You will smash up and blow up very quickly. Your pod racer takes quite a bit of damage quite quickly, but you can upgrade it as you go along and get better things, more armor, more stuff, things like that. It's all good. Overall, I would say this is a fantastic Star Wars game, one of the best, and it's widely available on most things now. I think a high resolution version of this game, probably the one that I'm playing right now, was ported to also PS4 and Xbox, so you can play this pretty much anywhere. It's also on the Switch, which is really cool because this is one of them perfect games that's really good for like portable play, just playing it as you go along. But overall, yeah, a great game. Recommend this a lot. One of my favourites. I say that about most Star Wars games, probably because I was such a big Nintendo nerd growing up and a huge Star Wars nerd. But now we are going to move on to the last one in the series, the last game ever released on the Nintendo 64 for Star Wars games even. And this is actually one of the rarer games on the Nintendo 64, quite hard to find a physical copy. I'm talking about Battle for Naboo. There's my copy again. This game is another movie tie-in game. It came out in the year 2000, and so just a year after The Phantom Menace was released, and is a tie-in game in the sense that you play the defense force of Naboo while you go around and fight against the droid army. The game was produced and developed by Factor 5 and LucasArts, and is considered a spiritual successor to Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which was released 2 years earlier, and is probably why there is a Naboo fighter in Rogue Squadron, because they were definitely developing these roughly around the same time, or had an idea to develop these around the same time. And yeah, it's really good. I really enjoyed this game. I was really surprised by it. It's probably not my favourite. I think it's more, the best way to think about this game is it's kind of like an add-on or like a DLC for Rogue Squadron. Not to say that the game's not its own unique thing, it definitely is. It just feels like Rogue Squadron but from the ground. So a lot of this is still, again, a vehicle combat game, in the sense that it's if you think of Rogue Squadron as flying about, this is all sort of ground troops level thing, talking your speeder bikes, your like weird little hover tanks, things like that. So it's always quite grounded, and it feels like an extension of the Rogue Squadron games, where it's like that but like on the floor, I guess, is the best way of trying to say what this game is. And if you think you'll be into that, then yeah, it's really good. One of the things I do like about this game is that it is based on Naboo, so you get a lot more unique Star Wars things that you probably wouldn't have seen or wouldn't have had a sort of a lot of time with compared to the stuff that's in like the Rebel Alliance. Everyone knows what an X-Wing is, everyone knows what a Y-Wing is, or a TIE fighter, but in here you don't really get that. You get all the different weird quirky things, like a heavy strap. What's a heavy strap? Don't know, but it looks like a sort of shark head, which is interesting, like a hammerhead shark. Actually no, this looks like the head of them creatures from Pitch Black, the Vin Diesel movie. The game is very fast paced and incredibly colourful. I always appreciate very colourful games, but the game is also very, very hard. It has a very steep learning difficulty, kind of like a get good scrub sort of difficulty level, where it like shows you what to do. First level is really easy, you think game's going to be a breeze, and then it's like, oh, by the way, you didn't pay attention to the 600 objectives that were like all at once, and then you die, and then you have to keep playing the same level over and over again, and you can't really get a lot of capture footage because you're stuck on the same second level, which you look online how to do it, and everyone's like, oh, this is really easy, this level, and you're like, it's not really that easy though, is it? Because I keep messing up. Anyway, I digress. Would I recommend this game? Yeah, probably. It's a Star Wars game. I'd say it's probably the least best game on the Nintendo 64, like out of the Star Wars games, but it's still pretty good as a Star Wars game, or a game in general, just not the best out of the four. I would say this is for strict fans only. If you like all of the other Star Wars games on the Nintendo 64 and you just want to sort of see the last one out, this is the best one, I reckon, but it is quite hard to get hold of. Now, that has been me rambling on about every single Star Wars game that came out on the Nintendo 64 and how much I love them. Thank you so much for watching this video. I absolutely love Star Wars Month. Every December I do Star Wars Month where I'm just going to go through Star Wars games. So comment below what platform you think I should cover next year. I've already done the PlayStation 1 and the Xbox, the original Xbox. So let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video, and I will see you in the next video.